So page 583, second lesson. No, if you weren't here, they're going to give us what we did. Do you remember how we multiplied binomials? Like maybe we did 2x plus 1 times x minus 4. Okay? We distribute it. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. Then we did this. Okay, and then we would combine the middle two. Okay, so if you weren't here last time, it's just quick refresh. So this is what you're going to start with now, and you're trying to find what two they multiplied. So we talked about, okay, well, the opposite of multiply is divide, so we kind of divide out the greatest common factor, or whatever factors are there to find what those original multipliers were, okay? Last time, they had a greatest common factor. Now they don't, so there's a different process. So look at example 1, okay? Okay, so the big difference today is we have, so if we're looking at this, okay, we have 3 terms, all right? So I've got x squared minus 9x plus 18. See how there's nothing on this x squared there? So that's like a 1, if that helps you. So always check if there's a greatest common factor like we did last time. But is there a number that would divide into 1, negative 9, and 18? That 1 kind of throws it off, okay? So I can't really, can you divide anything by 1 to simplify it down? Like, could you make 1 smaller? No. So if that first number is 1, I can't do greatest common factor, okay? So I want you to write this above here. This is called like standard form, right? So this, the 1 is our A, negative 9 would be our B, 18 will be C. All right, so in this case, what number is B? Like, look at the number. What would it be? What number? Negative what? Negative 9. Okay, what's C? 18. All right, and then here's kind of the key here. So they made a table. We do it a little bit differently, but it's the same idea, okay? So what we are trying to do, we need to find 2 factors or 2 numbers that have a sum of negative 9, okay? So here's how I set it up with the little, it's an X. So draw an X here, big X. We're going to have space to write in it. So we want them to have a sum of negative 9. That is the B, okay? So my B goes here. That's sum or add. Okay? Now the top number is A times C. So write that above there. And now we're going to fill it in. So if I did, and I'm going to add this, what was A? If there was nothing there, what did we write for it? What number? 1. Okay? Okay, watch closely here. This is what you're going to use for the rest of the unit. So if you cannot do this part of it, you will not pass the quiz. So make sure you're clear. So if I do, this says A times C. What is 1 times 18? 18. So I need factor of 18 that adds to, this is your B. What number was B? Negative 9. Okay, they listed them out here to kind of show you like where you're getting those numbers. If you can know them in your head, then that's ideal, but if you don't, you can divide out on your calculator and like add. So like this one, yes, sorry. So yeah, they all equal, and do they equal positive or negative 18? Negative. Nope, look again. Positive, because the negatives would cancel, right? Okay. Oops. But this other side says sum of the factors. So I want you to get your calculator. And we're going to add each of these. All right, so negative 1 plus negative 18. So Get your calculator out. What's negative 1 plus negative 18? Nope. Negative 19, yep. Okay, now the second one, negative 2. And what would I add?
Negative 9.
Plus negative 9. So I'm trying to test and see if these work. Negative 11. Okay, the bottom one, negative 3 plus negative 6.
Negative 9.
Negative 9. Okay, so here's where, so yeah, look at what we had. Tori said they all multiplied to 18. That's right.
Just like the different sides?
Yes, so now we're just checking which two worked. So the only two that added to negative 9 were what two numbers?
Negative 3, negative 6.
Negative 3, negative 6. That is the hardest part. Now I'll show you how to write it. So do we have any questions on just that part?
No.
Setting it up. Okay, so their first factor up here was x squared, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you multiply x by to get x squared?
Second part? Wait.
Like if I give you
X by X.
y times y, what's that equal?
Y squared.
Y squared. So x squared is x times x. So they've actually already written that here. So they have x and x. If you didn't, I usually just kind of write it in here. Like I set up 2 blank parentheses like that, okay? Well, I got x squared, so I know they both start with x. And now these numbers that we found go after the x, okay? So I'm going to write x minus 3. And then what will the other one say?
Minus 6.
Yes. All right. If we wanted to check it, remember you can always distribute and see if it works. Like I would do x times x is x squared, negative 6x, then I do the bottom, negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 6 is positive 18. So look close here for a second. What do you notice about those two numbers in the middle when I just distributed to check my answer? So negative 6 and negative 3. Are those repeated from our x? That's where those coming from. Because now, if I were multiplying, what would I do with these two to simplify? They're like terms, right? So I could combine those, which is the same as add, which is why we have that part there on the bottom, okay? So my answer, remember, is this. But I just did that last part to check. So example 2, next page. The book that doesn't do the x, so off to the side on example 2, draw your x. Make it fairly big that you can, because we're going to write numbers in it, okay? Okay, and let's label. So it goes in order. If there's nothing on the x, what's its value? 1. I just flipped the page. All right, so Libby, which one is the A? What number is the A?
The first one?
So what number?
1.
1. So A is 1. Okay, Tori, which one is B? Oops. Yep. So B equals 5. Colin, which one is C? Good. So make sure, like Colin did, you keep that sign with it. Okay? All right, so Lane, over here on my X that I drew, the top is my A times C. So if I do A times C, what would I get?
14.
Close.
Negative 14.
There you go. All right, now the bottom is just B.
So 5.
So 5. Okay, now think back. That's what I told you. We need 2 numbers. So here and here, I need 2 numbers that do what? What did we do to get negative 14 from them? What are we trying to do? So multiply. So here, I'll write this on here. 2 numbers that multiply to get negative 14 and add to get 5. They did make you a table over here. So if I look at those, they already picked the signs. Sometimes the signs can be kind of the hard part. Drake, help me with the table here. so if I want to do the sum, I'm adding, okay? So what's negative 1 plus 14? What would that give us?
Negative 1 plus 14?
Mm-hmm.
13.
Yeah, good. Okay, what about negative 2 plus 7?
Negative 5.
Close. Which one's bigger? Negative 2 or 7?
7, right?
7, so it keeps the positive sign. Remember that?
I said 5.
Oh, I thought you said negative 5. I'm sorry. All right, so then here, like they kind of write it out a little longer than I do, to be honest. I just do, and you can do it whichever makes more sense to you. So I know it's going to be 2 parentheses because I didn't have a greatest common factor on this one because I can't divide one really by anything. Tori, what do my parentheses start with? What do I put first? How am I going to get that x squared up here? What?
Are you still on the examples here?
Mm-hmm. Like, how am I going to get x squared? Because that'll be first.
You put them in one of those.
Okay. What would be in the second one then? X times what would give you x squared?
5?
Another x.
Oh.
All right, now we're going to plug in our numbers, okay? So, like I said, they kind of picked these ones for you. So which two factors gave us a product or multiplied to get negative 14 but added to 5? Negative 2 and 7. So I would do x minus 2. What would the other one say though? Plus or minus? Plus. I'm going to write this here just in case you guys get, so you can flip it and that's okay, all right? Either one. So if you're like, oh, I wrote mine the other way, that's fine. Doesn't matter on that, okay? Okay, so there's example 2. All right, example 3 just kind of has a double, both of the signs are negative there. That's what's going on. I'm going to say let's try it without the table just because I don't typically do that. We can write our A, B, and C though. So why don't you take like 1 minute. Oops. Take 1 minute and see if you can set up the table. So check in on 3. So I labeled this x squared as 1 in the front. Okay, so the x is 1. So let's go ahead and do our like A. So which number would be A? Goes in order. 1. What's B? Negative 3. C is 4. Okay, now do your x. Make it fairly big that you can like write in it. Okay, what number will go on top? So it's A times C. But if A is 1, it's always just going to be the C, right? So negative 4. Okay, what's going to go underneath that? What do they need to add up to? Negative 3. Okay, so what you're trying to do is find the two numbers that multiply to get negative 4 and add to negative 3. So can anyone think of two numbers that would work for that? Positive 1?
Yeah.
Okay, and negative 4. You can always check that. So on my calculator, I would do 1 times negative 4. Is that negative 4? Yes. Okay, now I do 1 plus negative 4. What's that equal? Negative 3. So that means it worked. Okay? So let's write our, they already put the x. Actually, I'll just write it here. X. That usually starts off the same way. All right, Tori, what's the first parenthesis going to say? X what? Okay. All right, Lane, what would the second parenthesis say if Tori put negative 4 first? What does this one need to be? The other side here. And would it be plus or minus 1? Plus. How did I get the sides, Libby?
Yeah.
So we just thought of two numbers that multiply to get negative 4 and add to negative 3. If you don't know them automatically, just start dividing things like, Well, I know 2 goes into 4, right? So I could have like tried that out. Well, 4 divided by 2, oh, it's negative 4. It is negative 2, but negative 2 plus 2 doesn't equal negative 3. So you kind of guess and check it. Okay? All right. I'm skipping 4. Kind of the same. And then I do want you guys to take, let's do 5 minutes, and I want you to try, let's do A and B here. Okay, so set up your X, and then do your, remember it'll be like double parentheses for your answers. Okay, so take 5 minutes, try A and B. If you are stuck, just let me know. So for checking, I think you guys, a lot of you got A. So remember, top one, A times C is 6, add to 7. So Tori, what 2 numbers multiply to get 6, but added to 7?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
1 and 6.
Good. Okay, so that means those are my numbers I write in my parentheses, but I got to do X plus 1, X plus 6. Okay, so if you can like realize those pretty quickly in your head, this actually goes pretty quick, okay? Okay, second one. What number do they need to multiply to get on B? Libby, what number do they need to multiply to get on B? What was the top of your X?
2.
Here, so so A times C, so A is 1, C is 12. So A times, what's 1 times 12? 12. Okay, they need to add to get negative 8.
I got it.
So my second one would be X minus 6, X minus 2. All right, so flip the page. This is our last one. It is going to be the hardest one. So example 6. Okay, now these next 2 examples are a bit tougher. So I'm going to scroll in here and look at, or zoom in example 6. Okay, sorry, my pen wasn't working. So the difference here is our A is not equal to 1 like it was before. So we have to do something a little bit different. We still start off the same way. If we can, we factor out a greatest common factor. This one has it, they won't always. But in this case, 2 is the greatest common factor. It goes into 4, 18, and negative 10. So that means I put my 2 outside the parentheses, and to get those inside numbers, I divide each of these by 2, giving me what they have here. Okay. From there, now we will use that A is 2, B is 9, C is negative 5. So I really didn't have to have these ones up here. And now we will do our X. So I want them to multiply to get A times C. Well, in this case, A is 2, C is negative 5, so I want them to multiply to get negative 10. I want them to add to get B, or 9. So those 2 numbers, I know it's going to have to be negative, because I get a negative 10 here. So I can think, well, 10 and 1 multiply to get 10. But I know that 9 is positive, so the negative 1 is what needs to take the negative. All right. From there, you are kind of splitting the 9x into these 2 terms. So if I do that, I will keep the 2x squared here, but I'm splitting 9x into 10x and negative 1x, kind of. Being sure to keep their signs, and then the negative 5 just comes down. All right, if you remember last time when we had a equation or an expression that had 4, we grouped it into 2 sets and then did the greatest common factor. Those will be different numbers. So if I look at the first one, I could take out a 2 from 2 and 10, but they also share an x. So my greatest common factor is 2x. divide each part by that. Those cancel, x cancels the 2, so I'm left with x. 10x divided by 2x is 5. Okay, and then the next step will have a different common factor. Since it's -1 and -5, the only thing they share is that negative. So I divide out -1, which leaves me with x, and -5 divided by -1 is +5. Okay, if you did it correctly, hopefully you remember the parentheses should match. So then final answer, I combine these two because I'm showing my double distribution as one set now, and for these I only need to write them once. Just to remind you, the reason for that is I'm going to do 2x times x, 2x times 5, which is what's shown here, and then if I were multiplying out, I would do -1 times x, -1 times 5, which is what they're showing here. So I really only need, so this is kind of like simplest form, combine it all, okay? Oh, one last thing on that, sorry, almost forgot. We factored out that common factor of 2 at the very beginning, so I have to be sure to include that here at the bottom. All right, they just showed it a little bit different right here, kind of split it up a little bit differently, so I just did it on the other page so you could see my work, but 7 is pretty similar here. So I want to look first, is there a common factor between 2, 17, and 21? There is not. There is no greatest common factor. So I would do that A is 2, B is -17, C is 21. Okay, remember, I want you to do the X setup. I know that's different than the book, but you will not receive full credit on your homework if you don't. So top, I'm doing A times C. But since A is not 1, it can't just be C. So 2 times 21 is 42. And then they need to add to B, which is -17. Okay, this one is definitely a bit harder. So when you get to ones like this where you may not know the two numbers immediately, so they've written out here factors of 42. Well, if we added each of these up, -43, this one would be -23, this one would be -17, that one would be -13. So these are the ones that work. So that means my two factors are -3 and -14. So -3 times -14 is 42. I add them, it's -17. So that's good. So I'm trying to split this just like they did on the last one, or like we did. And they do have this written down here, so they kind of split it. They wrote the 2x squared because I bring that down, so that's right here. But now my -17 is going to split into -14x and -3x. Okay, from there it's 4 parts, so I'm going to group it up and then divide out the greatest common factor. For the first one, that'll be 2x. I'm going to kind of show this over here because I don't really have space where they have it. Okay, so we're here. So the first one, greatest common factor would be 2. So I divide, 2x, sorry, they share an x as well. So I put 2x outside the parentheses, then divide, 2's cancel, x cancels there, leaving me with x. X cancels here, and then -14 divided by 2 is -7. Okay, greatest common factor on the other is 3. So divide, and actually in this case we want to take out -3 because I'm trying to make that variable positive. If you remember, like equations, you don't want to end with negative. So divide by -3. Those would cancel, leaving me with x, and then 21 divided by -3 is -7. If we did it correctly, our parentheses should match, and now we combine for our final 2x minus 3, putting those together, and then only 1x minus 7. You can always double check in the parentheses and make sure there's no more common factors. In this case, there are not. All right, for your homework, this is page 587. You will do number 3, 12, 14. Flip the page. There you'll do 34 and 36. I want to put a little star by those because those are like the second method where you have to split them because the a value is not 1. You also are doing 39, 40, 42. Flip the page. And then lastly, you're doing 52 and 60. Those are also like the last method because they don't have an a value of 1. Okay, that is on Canvas as well if you need those numbers gone over. Don't forget to take a picture and submit. For your homework, you have to show the X setup to get your full points.